Mr. Agnew.
17 seconds, doesn't it, Chairman? I know. I will play the game. Now, good afternoon, Minister, and when you were introduced by the Chairman, he said that you, as well as being the Minister of Agriculture in Bulgaria, you were also the Minister for Forestry. Now, we've got a little bit of a problem in this European Parliament because forestry isn't actually a competence of the Commissioner of the European Union, and yet we have committees such as this putting up initiative reports wanting legislation on forestry. And they go to the plenary, and they will subsequently go to your council, which you will be chairing. And I hope you will point out to those 27 other ministers of agriculture there that you shouldn't even be debating this, let alone taking a vote on it, and it should be kicked out of touch. I mentioned this morning about this climate change nonsense, which is what I think it is. You mentioned climate change. That means, tackling it, apparently farmers have to reduce their output of greenhouse gases. One of those is a greenhouse gas called nitrous oxide. Farmers produce that by growing leguminous crops. At the same time, the European Union wants to increase the amount of leguminous crops grown in the European Union. I point this contradiction out so often, nobody is prepared to actually come clean about it. You may have to vote on it within the next 6 months. I mentioned antimicrobial business resistance over the business breakfast this morning. And I'm in a more positive frame of mind here. Everyone has got to put their heads together over this topic, or we could see millions of people dying. And if there are any initiatives that come from here, I will not be as destructive and obstructive as I usually am. This is a real common problem. Finally, across your desks will occasionally come bans on pesticides and bans on GMOs. And it really worries me that over the years, I understand, some of the ministers of agriculture in that council, they abstain. They just duck out of it. Yet they are ministers of agriculture. If they were running agriculture in their own countries, they would have to make the decision. They would have to say ban or not ban. And yet they abstain, leaving you in the position that you have to put it back to the Commission, the unelected people, who are then forced to make a decision. So I hope you will what we call kick ass and make these people vote one way or the other. Thank you.
Mr. Agnew, you mentioned possible solutions. Yes, indeed. When we need to focus on innovation, and harmful emissions can be reduced by certain practices in agriculture. I don't think we should disregard the sensitivity of food security. At the same time, it's true that the keeping of cattle and of sheep, ruminants in general, affects the climate. Another important subject is animal welfare.